Yep, I do believe that. I do believe the very first. I do believe the very first race that ended in overtime was the 2004 Brickyard 400. Also won. Yep, I think the 2004 Brickyard 400 was the very first race ran in overtime. Ever since Brian France created it. And the 2004 overtime, and ever since overtime also brought chaos into the championship, into the 2004 championship, winning Kurt Busch, winning Kurt Busch's first and only championship for Roush Racing in 2004. In the 2004 championship race at Homestead, it was the first championship. It was the first time the 2004 Ford 400 at Homestead, Miami was the very first championship race that was ended in overtime. The green white checker. The very first championship fight ended under the green under overtime. There was wins. Yeah, there was countless wins. There was countless wins stolen because of NASCAR overtime. Yeah, Jeff Gordon has had wins stolen in overtime. There was a couple of races at Martinsville where Jeff Gordon had that race won. I think it was 2011. I think it was 2011 and 2012 when Jeff Gordon literally had that race won at Martinsville. And then the late race caution came out. The race went in overtime. Win was stolen from him. Yeah, there was drivers. And you thought the playoffs were bad enough. And you thought the playoffs were screwdrivers. The 16 driver elimination format play. The 16 driver elimination style format known as playoffs. You think that was the only thing that screwed drivers out of wins and screwed drivers out of championships? That was the major. The playoffs were the major reason why the drivers were screwed out of championships. Especially the 16, especially what we have now, the 16 driver format. The drivers were screwed from overtime too. The green white checker, the green white checker, screwed drivers from wins too. The green white checker rule screwed countless drivers out of wins. Joey Logano won. Joey Logano won a race at Nashville. He won at Atlanta because of overtime. A win was stolen from a driver because of an overtime finish. Again, it's happened. It happened a lot. It happened to a lot of drivers. Drivers getting screwed. Yeah, drivers getting screwed out of championships. Drivers getting screwed out of races because of overtime. Because of the overtime rule. Yep, you thought the playoff screwed drivers from wins. The new overtime rules screwed the NASCAR overtime. Screwed drivers out of wins. Especially the wins that that drivers desperately needed to stay in the playoffs. Especially wins that drivers desperately needed to get in the playoffs. I think the worst screw job, the most controversial way that the green white checker screwed drivers out of the playoffs was Spingate at Richmond in 2013. Spingate at Richmond. The 2013 Chevy Rock and Roll 400. Clint Boyer intentionally spinning himself out in turn 4 with less than 10 laps to go. Busting the field back up and costing the green white checker finish. Costing Jeff Gordon a spot in the playoffs and costing Ryan Newman a spot in the playoffs. Yeah, NASCAR Race manipulation. Ever since the green white checkered rule was implemented, race manipulation is at an all-time high. The green white checkered rule. Ever since the green white checkered rule, and ever since Brian France was in charge, race manipulation was at an all-time high. NASCAR started manipulating races. Drivers started manipulating races. Drivers started manipulating points too. The 2015. That's the reason why the 2015 fall race at Talladega, the 2015 Winston 500 at Talladega, was by far one of the worst finishes in Talladega in NASCAR history. Because it's Kevin Harvick was in a desperate situation. They only have one attempt. Kevin Harvick was in a desperate situation in that race happened. But we're going to talk about that later on in this episode. about overtime and about Brian France. Yeah, 2010, from 2010 all the way to 2015. They had three attempts at a green white checkered finish to increase the chances of a green flag finish and lower the chances of a race ending another yellow. And it worked. And it worked. Ever since then, chances of races, there was less NASCAR races ending under caution. Because of the because of the three attempts at the green white checker. Less races were in another yellow. Even in the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and in the Sprint Cup Series, less and less races were ending under yellow flag conditions. Less races were ending under caution. Under the three attempts for the green white checkered finish. Compared to the 1990s, where compared to the 1990s, where the chances of a race ending under caution was up, was at an all-time high. The old format that won Dale Earnhardt the Daytona 500 in 1998 was completely eliminated. Was completely eliminated in 2010. That is until the 2015. That is until the Austin Dillon scary accident at Daytona in 2015 during the Pepsi 400, when Austin Dillon's car went airborne and slammed into the catch fence at the end of the 2015 Pepsi 400 at Daytona. NASCAR decided to scrap the three attempts of an overtime finish. And that fall race at Talladega in 2015, they were only allowed one attempt at a green white checker. Which created by far one of the worst finishes in NASCAR history. The 2015 Winston 500 at Talladega. Kevin Harvick was so desperate. It was Kevin Harvick's desperate situation. It was under this format we have now, the 16 driver elimination format. The format that literally screwed drivers from playoffs. The format that literally screwed drivers from championships. That's the reason why drivers that had monumental seasons, drivers that had great seasons, that ever since the playoffs were first implemented. The one surefire thing, the reason why I do not like the playoffs, the 16 driver elimination style format, the one thing that I despise about this format, screwing drivers over. Not even the fans don't like it. There's no way a driver can like this format. The 16 style format known as the playoffs. There's no way a driver can like that format. Even Kevin Harvick admitted. He even openly admitted that 2014 was actually not his year to win the championship. 2014, believe it or not, was actually Jeff Gordon's year to win the championship. 2015 was actually Kevin Harvick's year to win the championship. He openly admitted it because of this format, because of this winning you're in format. Kevin Harvick openly admitted it that 2014 was not his year to win the championship, but he won it anyway under this format. It was actually Jeff Gordon's time to shine because he had a great season that year in 2014. I do believe he had the best. He do believe he had the best average finish. Jeff Gordon actually had the best average finish in 2014. He had wins. He had wins in tracks that he hardly ever won. Kansas Speedway, he actually won. Of course, Kansas Speedway, he actually did get wins at Kansas. He won the 2001 inaugural race at Kansas, and he won the 2002 race at Kansas. And Jeff Gordon got his third win at a night race at Kansas Speedway. His third win at Kansas is in the spring event at Kansas, under the lights. And I do believe it was the first night race held at Kansas Speedway, and Jeff Gordon won it. And Jeff Gordon won that race. He won the 2014 Brickyard 400. He won the 2000. He won at Michigan. In the fall race at Michigan, he won the fall race at Dover. Walks away with no championship. Had a runner-up finish at Martins. Had a runner-up finish, 1-200 motorsports finish at Martinsville Speedway. Guaranteed locked him into the championship four. Guaranteed would have locked him into the championship four. Stolen. All of it was stolen from him. Under this gimmicky format. Kevin Harvick openly admitted it in 2014 that 2014 was not his year. 2015 was actually his year. And the same driver that was literally screwed him, the same driver was actually screwed himself. After 2020, Kevin Harvick shouldn't have won that championship in 2020. He had a monumental season that year. He dominated that season. Kevin Harvick flat out dominated that season. That championship, he literally had that championship in the bag. All until this format came out. Screwed him over. And I do believe Kevin Harvick had the same average finish that Jeff Gordon had in 1998. Walks out with no championship. Now back to 2015 and back to overtime. Now back to overtime, back to 2015. 2015's fall race at Talladega, the Winston 500. By far one of the worst finishes in NASCAR history. When Kevin Harvick literally intentionally spun out Trevor Bayne, causing the big one, bringing out the race in the caution. Costing Dale Jr. the playoffs. And costing Dale Jr. a win that he desperately needed. Dale Earnhardt Jr. at an Earnhardt track. Literally costing Dale Jr. a win that he desperately needed to stay in the playoffs. The win that he desperately needed. That win that won him the championship that year. In 2015. The win that really literally would have gotten Dale Earnhardt Jr. into the championship four. Because he won at Phoenix. He won a range shortened race at Phoenix. Towards closer to the championship race at Homestead. Dale Earnhardt Jr. got his final win in 2015 at Phoenix. And that could have guaranteed him a spot in the championship four at Homestead. But it was again stolen from him. Under a flawed form after all because Kevin Harvick manipulated And it's manipulation.